My name is Roy Hattori. I was born in Monterey, about half a block from the entrance to the aquarium now, but that was in March the 7th, 1919. And so I've seen quite a few years here in Monterey. I've lived in Monterey itself on Del Monte Avenue till I was about 10 years old, when the family moved all the way over to New Monterey, and we lived on Foam Street and listened to the rattling of the old choo-choo train going by every day. But it was, as far as I can remember, it was a very good life for me. I enjoyed living in Monterey because I just loved the water, and I spent all of my life right here, right next to the ocean, and I can't imagine ever being any distance from it, except when we had a forced evacuation and were put into government-built concentration camps. And I was one of the ones that was sent to Arkansas, and where I was married and had a son. But it was supposed to be a relocation camp, they called it. However, they were very fussy about who they allowed to go out to work and relocate and make new lives for themselves. But when I went to apply for a pass to go out to work, I was told I couldn't get out of the camp because I was on a blacklist. My father was not politically active or anything, and he had come to the States actually because he was a second son, and as you know, in Japan, the first son took precedence over everybody else. And my father actually had a business going in Japan doing cloisonné work. We're familiar with cloisonné. It was top line of the potteries movement. It was based on a base of metal, like anything that was cloisonné had a base metal, and it was all the designs were worked in solid gold, silver, and solid gold. And until it was discovered that plated gold and plated silver would last as long as solid gold and solid silver, the news went out and the bottom fell out of the cloisonné market because you couldn't prove that it was gold or solid silver without breaking it. And so that was one of the reasons that my father came over here. He had a few connections, I guess, because they had a cloisonné setting all ready for him. They had all the kilns built and the ovens and everything else waiting for him to come. And when he came here, looked around to settle himself, he discovered that the clay was not available for the porcelain work. And as a result, he had really nowhere to go. And he so finally settled on becoming a fisherman, although he never did a bit of fishing at all while he was in Japan. That was the way it worked out for him, and he came down with a pretty bad case of asthma and eczema, and so he suffered all the time that he was here, and spent most of his time in the hospitals. And so when we tried to argue with the FBI people who came to interview us as soon as the war broke out, they just completely disregarded that, and disregarded the fact that my father had never had any correspondence with the family in Japan. Ever since he came here, not one letter that I know of was ever written by him to his family in Japan. But because of his belief in Japanese customs, all of the family had two sisters and a brother who all signed up for training in kendo. Kendo schools at one time were very popular, and the Japanese government sent over qualified instructors who taught kendo to the kids in the Japanese fashion. A lot of discipline. Actually, it was supposed to be a sport, but it would follow the old samurai lines, as far as I know. However, because of that, they put out a yearbook in California and listed all the families and the children and their parents who had participated in this kendo program. And that was the basis for all the internments that happened from from what the FBI could find out, because they got a hold of that book, and as a result, nearly every community leader in the Japanese communities was taken into internment and listed as enemy aliens. And although the same listing was put on us, even though we were American-born, and myself, I had no knowledge at all of Japanese except for what my mother and dad told me. And they told me quite a bit, enough to make me appreciate the fact that I was born Japanese, even though my citizenship said American.